Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's bright and early, daily discipline, mind, body, and soul. This is how we get through. Go check out my website at skysworld.com. Let's talk about being overwhelmed. Anybody out there overwhelmed with life, with your life? Sometimes we get overwhelmed during our week or during our month. It may just hit us like a wave if we're not paying attention, you know, and just kind of comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you feel like you're sinking, like there's just too much for you to handle. Shit's happening too fast. There's too much on your plate. What is being overwhelmed? I get overwhelmed and I hate it. It's one of the worst feelings that I can experience. Some people have the emotions that they despise the most, and for you it may be sadness or anger. For me, it's being overwhelmed. I can't stand being overwhelmed. It triggers me. One of my responses to being overwhelmed is to give up. I get overwhelmed and I'm just like, all right, that's it, fuck everything. My entire vision for my life just crumbles, and everything in the world, I just turn into middle fingers. Fuck the world, fuck every single person, fuck you. And that's what happens to me after I get overwhelmed. And I wonder just about myself, why do I get overwhelmed sometimes? Why does that happen? How does it happen? And why does it happen selectively? It's not across the board. People don't usually get overwhelmed with their entire lives, even though one aspect of your life can make it feel like the whole rest of your life sucks. And that's a delusion. You can be overwhelmed by your kids. You can be overwhelmed by your workload, right? There's all kinds of things. And I think some of it boils down to time management, or should I say mismanagement of your time. You know, the things that you aren't doing, that you're not taking care of. Things that you really aren't on top of. And they come back to bite you in your ass. When you get overwhelmed, is it our own fault? Is that anger that we express at the world? Because when we're overwhelmed, we get angry at others, at the world. We have this defensive response. I'm just trying my best. Leave me alone. You know, whatever it is that you might think. But it's something that we do to ourselves. It's a self-sabotage, being overwhelmed. It's our own lack of preparation, our own lack of scheduling, time management. You may be overwhelmed with your workload, but it may be because you mismanaged your time. It may be that you bit off more than you can chew and you don't know how to say no. I think that it's important to be on top of things, and I just look at it in certain areas of my life. For example, I never get overwhelmed with the cleanliness of my house. I go to my brother's house a lot, and him and his wife are kind of messy people. I'm not trying to blast them on social media, but they are messier than me, at least. And I can tell that this is a problem for them, and that they get overwhelmed with the clutter and how dirty their house gets, and it can be kind of hard to clean. And when it's particularly messy, I know that it's not because they had a wild party, it's just because they're so overwhelmed with it. There gets to be a certain point where they just can't tackle it, they can't handle it. It feels like too much of a task, something they'll never get on top of. But I keep my house fairly spotless all the time. And I've never once ever felt like my house was too cluttered, felt like that I needed to clean up. I stay on top of things with that. I'm always on top of it. So that's an area for me that I never get overwhelmed in, ever, is with the cleanliness of my house. Whereas that is something that overwhelms others. And it's just simply because I stay on top of this. When you're staying on top of aspects of your life, it's hard to become overwhelmed by them. If you're on top of all your workload, even if you know that, sure, your schedule's pushed out for 3 months, you got a mountain of work to do. You got nothing on your calendar open. As long as you know what your schedule is and what you're planning to accomplish in each day, you won't get overwhelmed. It's when you give yourself too much, when you have too high of an expectation, when you think that you can do more than you can. So I think time management is huge. Being able to be on top of things. But I do think that we get overwhelmed for a second reason beyond just time management, and that's being a control freak. I think some people get overwhelmed with life because they think they can control it. And I talk about this in several of my videos about the concept of wu-wei, of going with the flow. And some people mistake going with the flow for apathy, for not caring, for just giving up. It's not true. Some people have this response that going with the flow is only for dead fish, right? That's your little snarky response when you hear someone say, go with the flow, and you don't really understand what it means. When I talk about go with the flow, I'm not talking about simply floating down a river, like your dead fish analogy. I'm talking about becoming the river. You are the water. The water finds a way. The water doesn't fight with the rocks that are jutting out. It just flows around them or over them. And it's good to have that kind of attitude towards life, and it can help you with your control issues. That just realize that you can flow around this or over this. You don't have to control every obstacle. And I think that when we get overwhelmed, it's because we want to control things. If you're stuck in traffic and you're overwhelmed by traffic and there's just too much, it's because you want to control it. What you wanted isn't happening. Maybe that's a big aspect of being overwhelmed, is our want. We want something. We're so attached to our want, to the way we think something should end up. This is being a control freak. We're playing God. This is why wu-wei, going with the flow, is so important. It's all food for thought. Think about being overwhelmed and why it happens. If you can have the clarity of mind to right in the moment when you're overwhelmed, instead of being infuriated and frustrated and whatever you go through, that emotional roller coaster ride, if you could have the clarity of mind, scientific mind, to in that moment contemplate, what's going on with me? What sparked this, and why am I feeling this way? And you'll learn a lot about yourself. If you can solve this, if you can get over being overwhelmed, oh man, you can navigate so successfully. You can level up. Thanks for watching.